Hello again, everyone. Thanks for subscribing. My last video was on Stella by Starlight, and I did a lot of rootless voicings, and I thought I'd really dig into it again today and really try to clarify what's going on here, especially with the box voicings. So, notice on the chart here that the box voicings are generally used for dominant chords and maybe a minor 7 flat 5 or a minor 6 9 chord, but they are not really used for minor 7th chords and major 7th chords. Let's take a look at a 2-5-1, and we're going to use the box voicings. So we'll start with D minor, and we'll use a rootless voicing by changing the root to a 9, and here it is up here. Now this inversion, you could use any inversion, but this inversion leads you to box 1. You see? There's D minor 7th, and here's G7, just like it is up there in the chart, okay? You only change one, and that's why these things work so well. It's good voice leading. See? None of the voices have to move much. And then for our C major, we can do this. Right? This is the bass player down here. Or you could make the 7 a 6 and make it a 6-9 chord. That's a very common substitute there, so. All right, so you can practice box 1 voicings by practicing all your 2-5-1s like this. All right, and then take it up a half step. All right. Okay, you can do that for all 12 keys, and you can do it in a different order too. You could go down by half steps, or you could do cycle of fifths where you're in the key of C, and then the key of F, and then the key of, what's next, B flat. So, all right, see? And of course with the bass notes. Nothing wrong with doing it this way either. And for those of you keyboard players who play a lot of left-hand bass, it's a good idea to learn all these voicings with the right hand. But I would learn them with both hands, actually. Okay, so that's box 1. But you know, you see up there on the chart that box 1 can be used as an altered dominant chord. Here, you know, this G7 just had a 9 and a 13 in it, and those are unaltered because it's not a flat 9 or a flat 13. Let's just take a look at another way to use box 1. All right. So we see that not only can it function as a G 7th chord, it could function as a D flat 7th chord. All right? And that's a tritone away. And so when you're playing these kind of box voicings, the bass player has the freedom to either play, say, a G or a D flat in a particular 2-5-1. Like, for instance, you could go D minor and D flat. And see, there we're using it as an altered dominant, and then C. Okay? But what about, like, say, a 2-5-1 that's like this? Right? A flat, D flat, G flat. Okay, so A flat, we'll use... Let's look at this real carefully for a second. Let's use A flat minor 7th. We're going to change the root to a 9th, right? And we're going to use this inversion, okay? Just like in D minor, this inversion and this inversion lead you to box voicings. So that's why they're used more. Okay, we're going to go A flat minor, and we're going to use this. And a lot of times, you know, you're going to play these with your left hand while you're improvising. But for right now, I'll play the bass note so you can hear what it really sounds like. And then I'm going to go to D flat and look. See, the chord I was calling G7, now I'm calling D flat 7. And this one, which had unaltered tensions of a 9 and a 13, in this case, those unaltered tensions, the same notes here, are now going to be altered tensions. That's a flat 13 and that's a sharp 9. All right? And the 3rd and the 7th, you know, it was the 7th and the 3rd here, now it's the 3rd and the 7th. That's why tritone substitution works, by the way, because the 7th and the 3rd are the same for both chords. All right, 7th, 3rd, 3rd, 7th. And then when we add, you know, these notes from box 1, we get an altered dominant chord. And it sounds pretty hip. Listen. All right, there I'm using F sharp or G flat minor 6th. And actually, that's a box 2 version, but I'm getting ahead of myself now. So A flat. And I could just resolve it to a major 7th chord like this, you see? So that's 2 ways to use the box 1, using it as a unaltered dominant and as a altered dominant. So we could practice that in all 12 keys. Let's go to A minor. It might be a little simpler. All right? Now, when we use the altered dominant, we're actually changing 3 notes. It's good voice leading because they're only moving by half steps here, and this one's staying the same. So it's smooth sounding, but it's not quite as easy as going, when you went like there to there and you only moved 1 note. So now we're going to be moving all 3 different notes there. But it's pretty easy. These 2 slide down, this one goes up. All right? And then now let's do a 2-5-1 in G, just up a half step. Here's A minor, rootless because our root is changed to the 9. And then I'm going to move these 2 down, and this one up, and I've got D altered, and then I'll go to a G major 7th, or I could go to G minor 6th or something. Anything will work there, G minor, G major, whatever. 2-5-1s, the 1 can go to be a major chord, a minor chord, or even another dominant chord. Let's go up another half step. B flat. There I used a minor 6-9 chord as my 1 chord. Let's go up another step. Oh, sorry. Do that again. What did I do? A minor. I could go to A major just as easily. You can practice it either way, of course. But right now we're just focusing on that box voicing here. All right. So practice your 2-5-1s. Start by using unaltered box 1 on the 5 chord. All right. Do it in lots of different keys. Then come back, do the same thing. Start up here on D minor, okay? Because it's this kind of minor 7th chord that's going to get you to that altered box voicing. I'm going to do this with one hand here. Okay, so that's box 1. All right, let's use this. Let's kind of explain the same exact thing, and this time we're going to use box 2 and show you how to use that one. Instead of using that rootless voicing for D minor, I'm going to go up not just to this inversion, but to this inversion. This is the version that will lead you to a box voicing. I just change 1 note. There it is. It's the exact same chord as this down here that we just covered, but it's the inversion of it. Box 2 is just an inversion of box 1, so all the exact same stuff applies. But of course, it just looks different on the keyboard. So here we go. Change 1 note. All right. Now, if you make that into a minor chord, you can keep doing 2-5-1s because a 2 chord is a minor chord. Or you can just do this stuff in half steps. Or you can go around the cycle of fifths. If you start on the key of C, then you do it in the key of F, then B flat, then E flat. Okay, so I can practice box 2, using it as an unaltered dominant chord, just like this. Right there it is, an unaltered dominant chord. And of course, it's just, that's an easy one to get to because you're only moving 1 note there. The 5 chord is always a dominant. If it's like in a 2-5-1, it's always a dominant. I mean, you can go to if you're doing a 2-5-1, the 5 is always a dominant. The 2 is always a minor or a minor 7 flat 5. but it's a minor seventh generally. And the 1 chord could be either major, minor, or dominant. It just depends on what kind of 2-5-1 you're doing. All right, so we're looking at box 2 like this. Now, just like the other one, if I did a 2-5-1, a tritone away, all right, so instead of having G7 there, I'm going to have D flat 7. And look, now it's an altered dominant. All right, and you say, well, that doesn't sound very good, but check it out. I'm going to do a 2-5-1. That's my 5 chord, so here's my 2 chord. A flat minor. There's the 7th. We've got the 9th on there. That makes that part of it a rootless voicing. I'm playing the roots to make it sound so you can hear it clearly. And then we're going to go to that same box voicing. Right, there it is. I mean, we used it as G7 before, but now it sounds great as a D flat dominant. All right, so A flat, 2, 5, 1. And then, we can do this in every key as well. Let's take A minor. Okay, now it's a little harder to get to, right? Because you're not just moving one note and getting box 1. You're moving these 2 down and this one up to get box 2. And to get a altered dominant, which, in jazz, altered dominants are pretty hip. You almost always have like the flat 9 in there, which, can be considered an altered chord. But this one doesn't have the flat 9, it just has the root, 7th and the 3rd, of course. There's the sharp 9 right next to the 3rd, and up here, flat 13. It's a 6th, flat 6th, but technically, flat 13 is the right name. Okay, so we need to practice these. I honestly feel a little rusty on this. So this would be good practice for me too. Now, later on when I do another video about this, I will talk about, the scales that work best with these box voicings. And the beautiful thing is no matter how you're using a box voicing, like say you're using this chord, all right? And you use it as a G7th unaltered chord, all right? And you take the appropriate scale. In this case, it's going to be Lydian dominant. Now, if I was using that as an altered chord instead, like this, I use the same scale. All right, start on A flat minor, D flat. Right? And not only that, the bass player has the freedom not just to go to D flat, but could also go to G and do a 2-5-1 this way. Right? That particular Lydian dominant scale is pretty easy because it's only got that one sharp. So you can make up a lot of easy patterns and stuff. Pretty much exhausted this subject for now. But there is more to say about it, for sure, especially when we get into box 3. And while I'm sitting here, I might as well try to do a video on box 3. So I'm going to make this a separate video. So cut the tape here. Hello again, everyone. Let's do a video on box 3. All right. So what is box 3? Very similar to box 1. If we did a 2-5-1 in the key of C, using our box voicing here. Why do we call it a box voicing? Because I analyzed it in a box. It's in a damn box up there. That's the only reason. You can call it anything you want. So here's box 3. Instead of just doing this, move this one down too. All right? And you can see by the chart that this chord has 8 different functions, all right? It can function as an F diminished chord, right? With what we call a whole tone extension. And of course, diminished chords can be moved around in minor thirds because they're so symmetrical. So it can function as 4 different diminished chords, and you hear this all the time. Chick Corea does this a lot. You know, if he's on a 2-5-1 and he gets to the 5 chord, he moves it around like that and uses the diminished scale usually. You know, or bases his ideas on the diminished scale. Chick's pretty advanced, so you know his fingers know diminished scale, but his brain is working at a different level, you know, and he's thinking melody, and you know he'll put all kinds of different stuff in there. You know, there's a little diminished in there and a little something, something that defies description.